Ed here with the Digital Digest, and today I wanted to share my full review, the digitally digested segment, for the Sigma 35mm f2 DG/DN contemporary lens for Sony full-frame E-mount cameras. Now, Sigma does also make this for the L-mount, but today's review is about the E-mount version. And I have to say, this is a incredibly competent, well-made 35mm prime. Fairly compact, so that means it is a good match for the A7C, but it's not incredibly small, so that means that it does also fit nicely on cameras like my A7R II and A7R4, something that I didn't really think I would be running to shoot with it on, simply because, of course, if you want faster 35mm primes, they do exist. But I think this is strong competition for Sony's own 35mm f1.8, which is a little bit more expensive. This retails for, I think, around $650, and the Sony generally is a $750 lens, but often is on sale for a little under $700 US. So Sigma coming in a little bit less expensive. This is very similar to the compact 24mm relationship, I'll say, between Sigma and Sony. $50 difference here, a little bit more of a substantial pricing difference considering the Sony is a retail price point of $750. Build quality, again, excellent. You have your autofocus switch right there. Of course, the aperture ring, nice and clicky. No way to turn that click off, which, you know, if you are a hybrid shooter, may be something of a concern, but I think for most it will not be. Again, I really appreciate the separation that, in spite of this being a compact lens, that exists between the focus ring and the aperture ring, which I think is relevant. And then the metal lens hood, I think, is fantastic. And this is something, I said it in other videos, that I feel like Sigma is listening to consumers, and on a lot of their lenses, which aren't necessarily at the top tier of their pricing, much like this one, they were using a lot of plastic lens hoods. And I think, you know, when you have great build quality, like Sigma does, again, made in Japan, then why not follow through across the entire board? And I'm glad to see Sigma doing that with these metal lens hoods, even on compact primes. Now, I still consider this a compact prime, even though it's substantially larger than something like the 24mm prime or the 45. It's really closer, akin to the size of their 65mm prime. One of the things I also really like about it, which is more cosmetic and about convenience, is the magnetic lens cap. Now, of course, they include the traditional lens cap right there. Nothing really to say about that. It works, it does its job. It's more secure than the magnetic, but I friggin' love the magnetic ones. I don't know what else to tell you. And it's not an ingenious invention, but it is just adding a little spice, a little flavor. And I do really believe that all of these new primes from Sigma targeted at the A7C are all about convenience. And I think the magnetic lens cap is no exception. So if you're not someone who plans on using the hood too much, and I say that because unless you have really long fingernails, very hard to get the magnetic lens cap off when the hood is on body, then I think you're going to really appreciate the magnetic lens caps. And I see that as a win because this camera, the A7C, is all about convenience. If you want something large, as I'm having trouble lining it up, if you want something large, something more expensive, bulkier, a faster piece of glass, it's out there. It's been out there. This launch of more compact prime lenses, both from Sony and Sigma alike, is really targeted, like a laser, on A7C owners, which, as I've stated over and over again in my original review of this camera, it's all about pleasing a much broader demographic than the other full-frame cameras that Sony has made in the past. This is a camera that I can easily recommend to amateurs as well as pros alike, as long as they know what they're getting themselves into. And in a very competent fashion, Sigma is addressing their lenses in the exact same way, which is make lenses that are affordable, but deliver high quality, both in terms of optics, both in still and video, and then complement it further by making it really convenient to start shooting. And I gotta love that. I mean, if you're out in the field and you're, again, either an amateur or a pro, who wants to be finicking around with traditional lens caps if you can actually sport something like this? And I really do love the magnetic lens caps. I know I'm beating the dead horse here, so to speak, even though I should get rid of that expression because it's pretty gross. And I don't know anybody that beats dead horses, so we're not going to get into the origination of that. But the point is, this is a convenience camera, no matter who is shooting with it. It's a camera that can be comfortable in just about anyone's hands, not large, yet totally competent, full frame, great overall characteristics for video as well, stabilization on board, obviously in body. And I know that Sony's going to flesh out the C line of full frame cameras over time, because they would not be making the investment in glass unless they saw the future going smaller. The less is more certainly coming back to life. And I love that. And I love to see that we have options outside of Sony. So while Sony already, as I stated earlier, has a great 35 mil that I also consider affordable, it's nice to have a well-appointed, well-made alternative. Now, a lot of you out there are going to say, well, there are other manufacturers, and of course there are. And I'm not taking away anything from those other manufacturers. What I am pointing out is that Sigma, like Sony, has a long-standing reputation for high-quality optics. And of course, in the camera body world, they're not the most dominating force, but they are bleeding edge. I mean, the Sigma FP, and hopefully I'll have the FPL soon to share with all of you. Pretty amazing stuff, what Sigma has done. In fact, they were the ones to make the smallest full-frame camera ever, not Sony. I mean, Sony likes to point that out with this camera, but the FP did come before it. It may not be as versatile, the FP, as this in terms of its autofocus system and the wide variety of consumer that it appeals to, but at the end of the day, Sigma is, as Sony is, a very reputable, long-standing brand and still made in Japan, something even Sony cannot say. So there is some form of value, in my opinion, in acknowledging that. All of the new lenses, the new primes, are following the design language and build quality of Sigma's cinema line of lenses, which I really like. So that's another nice thing. And I mean, this is probably the only lens outside of Sony's own native E-mount glass that just looks like it's meant to live on the Sony body you see before you. And as I stated, even though I feel this is really designed specifically for the A7C, it is completely competent on cameras like my A7 R2 and 4. If you're wondering why I don't have the 3, it's because I sold that a while ago when I purchased the 4. I knew I did not need that many bodies with such similar characteristics in terms of performance. So, and specifically what they aim to achieve. Now, as a hybrid shooter, personally, I would love for Sigma to incorporate the click switch. I've said this about their other compact primes, but you know, a 35 mil lens like this is incredibly competent, incredibly versatile. A little bit of focus breathing, but nothing that you wouldn't see, again, with Sony themselves. So I feel like this does give Sony a run for its money when it comes to their own affordable 35 mil prime. Of course, if you want to step up into another realm of optic quality, that's where the GM line comes in, and so does your checking account. So it's really a matter of what you're after. I think that much like the other primes, that compact primes that Sigma launched and Sony launched, they're aimed at more mainstream rather than professional users. Again, the average person who wants a great camera, a great lens, and yes, this is not an inexpensive body, but it is not the direction that Sony's been going. I mean, the A1 is a $6,500 body. Even the A7R4, $3,500 original retail. Now I've seen some amazing sales on that camera for around $2,300. If you can get it, get it. That is absolutely worth it. And even my old A7R2 is still incredibly competent here in 2021, even though that launched 100 years ago. Well, more like 2015. So you get my point. This is really, I think, a perfect fit for a camera like this. 35 mil, I don't prefer it over the 24 mil compact prime. I especially love the macro capability of that Sigma lens. But for those of you that 35 is the focal range, specifically the prime you're after, you're going to be happy with this. I mean, it performs well in low light, does beautifully in, of course, normal lighting conditions, and the balance on this body is pretty much perfect. It could be lighter. That's one thing I will say about the Sigmas. They're all so dense and so robust in their build quality that they do make even a little body like this, the A7C, a little front heavy. You can see it does tilt forward, but nitpicking at its finest right there. Again, I don't think you can go wrong with this lens. I can highly recommend it. Just like the Sony 35 f1.8 is incredibly popular, I think this is now going to share that limelight with it. And if you are specifically a Sigma-oriented user, someone who has been a fan of Sigma glass for a long time, I think you've got to be happy that you're just getting more and more options from Sigma that are premium but don't carry, again, a premium price tag and still made in Japan, which is a rarity. Now, I will reiterate, I say this all the time, that because a product is made in China versus Japan is not a knock at that product, because no matter where they're made, God forbid anything was made in the US anymore, the idea is still the same, which is that the specifications of the parent company, the manufacturer, those specifications have to be met even if it's being made on Mars. Of course, that's not possible, but you understand my point. So whether it's made in China, Japan, South Korea, wherever, Vietnam, Sony used to make camera bodies and lenses there until some natural disasters. The whole point is that the specifications, the standards end up, being of that manufacturer's specificity. So while I do prefer products made in Japan, because I come from a time when I can still remember a lot of camera gear being made, especially Sony stuff being made in Japan, it doesn't mean that made in Japan is better than made anywhere else. But if, like me, you're from a time when a lot of things were made in Japan, specifically electronics, DI equipment, televisions, things of that nature, you will inherently have some form of, association of quality with being made in Japan, no differently than Vio laptops. You definitely pay an extreme premium for the fact that they are made in Japan. And a lot of people won't care about that, and I completely understand where they're coming from. So overall, the really important thing to know is that you're getting a great piece of glass with weather sealing. Again, not as robust as what Sony does, but I keep mentioning that I don't really buy into what manufacturers say about weather sealing, because I've mentioned weather sealing for many, many years across, whether we're talking about physical bodies or the glass you attach to them. But I will always say the same thing about it, which is please don't get your equipment wet. This stuff, whether it's rated to get wet or not, that's really, no manufacturer is going to say, well, if it ends up having, a condensation issue or mold buildup, we'll take care of it. No, they're not going to. Also, Sigma is good about warranty issues, so you don't have to worry that you're buying it from a no-name manufacturer. So a lot of people like to say, take a look at Samyang. I don't have a problem with them or other manufacturers, small shops compared to, of course, Sigma, Sony, and Tamron. I don't have an issue with that at all, but for the general public who, again, the broad breadth that the A7C represents, and they're looking for a tack-sharp 35 mil prime, you've got it here. And you've got it at a price that right now is impossible to beat from a manufacturer with a reputation like Sigma, and again, made in Japan. So really like this lens, and I see absolutely no reason that all of you aren't going to enjoy this pairing. And if, again, you want to shoot it on a larger E-mount full frame, you can do it. I just think that it's clear Sigma's intent here was to give us affordable quality prime glass for the A7C. And I'm happy they did it. I mean, this If I owned an A7C, this and the 24mm would probably be my two favorites, just because in the world of primes, those are my go-to focal points. Otherwise, I do tend to like the flexibility of zoom glass that is hopefully fast. I'm not looking for that bottom range kit sort of aperture, but something that's a little bit faster. So that's why, I own the GM 100 to 400, but I don't necessarily tell everyone to run out and buy the GM version of everything, because that really isn't necessarily justified. Although some people think spending more money does always equate to everything being better. That is a fool's errand if there ever was one. At any rate, the Sigma 35, easily a number one choice if you're looking for a compact, fast 35mm prime for street photography. Even portraits. Portraiture absolutely is doable with this. Just remember to use your camera wisely, young Padawan. And that's pretty much it. Really like this lens, if that wasn't clear through the course of this now 16-minute video. Love that we've got a robust lens hood. Love that we have the incredibly convenient magnetic lens cap. This may make me want to pick up, personally, some Sigma lenses and dump some of my Sony ones, simply because the performance is there, the build quality is there, and I finally have options, and so do all of you. And that's the beauty of competition, folks. While I love Sony, I love seeing manufacturers like Sigma step up and give us alternatives that don't sacrifice quality and sometimes save us a good chunk of money. Kind of like their ultra-wide zoom that I reviewed last year that I love. That ultra-wide zoom is still on my short list. May end up in my gear bag. Any questions or comments, please feel free to post them. Hit that like button. And as usual, please feel free to subscribe and please stay safe. Later.